Hello, and welcome to the Soul Shaking Love podcast. This podcast is dedicated to bringing you the world's expert teachers on how to create a mind and body and spirit connection, both with yourself and with your true love. I'm Valerie Green, your host from CoachValerieGreen.com. And today I'm really excited to be interviewing Matthew Riven about why you keep ending up in the same relationships and how to finally break the pattern. Hi, Matt or Matthew. Do you prefer Matt or Matthew?
Matthew, if you would. And Valerie, it is great to see you and great to chat.
Yeah, likewise. And we were chatting beforehand, and Matthew just has such a wonderful way of talking about relationship dynamics, about power dynamics. I really look forward to diving in. I will tell you a little bit about Matthew before we start. He's a coach and guide who helps people, and this is what he specializes in, which is amazing because this is one of my favorite topics about really breaking the relationship patterns that we inherited from childhood. You know, because as he'll explain, if you've been dating the same person with a different body, it's not your fault, right? That used to be the case for me too. We all inherit relationship patterns from childhood, and that's what he specializes in. And he really helps people to get past their pain, create relationships rooted in truth and power and choice. He's trained in transactional analysis and redecision therapy with a focus on power and desire dynamics, and brings a deeply grounded, sometimes irreverent approach to intimacy, shame, and personal transformation. So I'm super excited to dive into all of that. So first of all, I'm just curious, because Matthew, you talked about transactional analysis and relationship scripts. And so I think that's a really great question. Like, what is a script that we inherit from childhood? And then how does that shape our adult relationships? Like, how does that dynamic really happen?
So the script that essentially what happens is we write the last page of our book first, and then we spend the rest of our lives making that come true. So early on, and it can be pre-verbal, before we're 18 months old, it can even be in utero, we start realizing what it takes to manipulate our environment through our parents, through any siblings we have, what it takes to get our needs met, whether that's love or power or strokes. And through these messages we get, and they're all subconscious, they're nonverbal at that age, we decide whether we're going to be successful, whether we're not, whether we're going to be rich or poor or lonely or happy. And we decide early on, this is how my life is going to look. And then we spend the rest of our lives, up to about 3 to 7 years old, we're kind of refining that script. We spend the next few years really defining it. And then unless we change it, we're spending the rest of our lives making that come true. Now, if you've got a successful script, you and I are never going to see those people. They're not going to come to us as clients. They're doing great. But
Right.
very, very few people get out of childhood unscathed. And so you're going to have little things that keep tripping you up. The beautiful thing that I can say for what I do, is everything is subclinical. I don't need to diagnose you with this disorder or that disorder or anything in the DSM. These are just habits you have and the way you interact with the world that we just need to clean up a little bit and then help you, as I like to say, start living the life you want, not living the life you should, the one that should be living because your parents told you that's what you should be doing.
Right. Yeah. Or because you observed. I love what you're saying. And people might really be like, what, in utero? Like, we don't make any decisions then. But as you know, the research shows that it's not like we have conscious, verbal thoughts before we can think, but it's called implicit memory. And it's like our
Yeah.
body stores that as like, this is what love is, like for me, I'm trained in a modality called 𝐭𝐭𝐭𝐡𝐞𝐰, which allows you to really access that implicit memory. And it's true, like I can feel all the way back to the impressions from early childhood that my dad was really controlling and my mom was really submissive. And, it's not like I'm judging them, that was their program, but that on a body level, I decided, well, those are only the two options, either to control things
Right.
or to be controlled. And then it's like that gets played out, right? So I just really want to validate what you're saying. It happens for
And
everybody.
you see that over and over and over again. And so those who are questioning the in utero part of it, if your mom is very stressed during the pregnancy, there's a lot of cortisol, there's a lot of all the stress hormones and everything else coursing through her system, and you are picking that up as well. If mom is very relaxed and loving and caring, and all the oxytocin and the love hormones and the dopamine and everything else are coursing through, that's you're going to pick up as well. So we can come out regulated or dysregulated, frankly, from the pregnancy. And then we start having the interaction with our parents. And at this point in time, we are helpless when we are born. There is nothing that we can control in our environment. So we need to figure out, when I'm hungry, does a simple cry work? Do I have to cry louder and louder and louder? And if nobody comes, do I just give up? And now I'm passive. And that's how I learned to interact with the world. And these messages are going to be brought to you again and again from your parents and from your siblings, who learned, if you have older siblings, they learned how to treat you by watching your parents treat you. And so
Mm-hmm.
it just magnifies it. And then if you have somebody in your life who treats you different, well, our bodies only know different. We don't know that that different is better than what we're used to. We just know it's different, and we're going to push back away from it. The
Mm-hmm.
adage you can find when it comes to relationships is, you finally meet that everybody in your life is going, that is a good guy. That is a great person for you. And you're like, there's just something wrong, because he may be a great person. But if you are an avoidant and you have somebody who's secure and loving you, boy, that avoidant part of you is not going to see that as a healthy relationship. It's something that's different, and we have to be afraid of different because it
Mm-hmm.
breaks our script.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And it's so um universal, and like you're saying, if our parents or caretakers had a really harmonious relationship, then those are the scripts that we inherit. And of course, I want to say it's not necessarily our parents' quote unquote fault if they have
No, no.
their own unhelpful scripts from childhood. But I love that you really help people to reprogram them. So,
And,
let's talk about some of those scripts so that people have an understanding of what we're talking about. I know that some a lot of what you probably deal with is people that are people pleasing, or you mentioned people who have avoidant attachment, which is a little bit the opposite. I mean,
yeah.
of course, people with avoidant attachment can also be codependent and people pleasers, because it's it's people are very complicated. But so what
Oh,
are some of these?
yeah. And that last description is, that is the come here, go away mentality, is I'm going to bring you in and push you away all at the same time.
Right.
One of the easiest ones is the people pleaser. You were raised to, and this comes up a lot with my clients in my work. So you have the people pleaser. You are born and raised to make everybody else around you happy, whether that's the conditional love that you got from your parents, they appreciated you when you were doing good things for them, or it was the way you kept yourself safe. If you had an unsafe environment growing up, but you kept mom or dad or both happy, they treated you better. You learn to please people. But what happens along the way is you end up with no desires of your own. I want to do ballet. Tough. You have to watch your brother and sister after school. I want to do gymnastics. We don't have the money. Your younger sibling is very sick. All these kind of things come in, and we learn that if we say no, our parents take our love away. And so you end up with a people pleaser. And a lot of times, what happens is, you're going to get into your 30s, you're going to get into your 40s, and all of a sudden, you're going to realize subconsciously, actually, what's going to happen is, you're going to have a lot of resentment. And you may not realize why. You just, I'm not sure I love my husband. I'm not sure, or spouse. I'm not sure I love my spouse. I'm feeling all this resentment. This is not a job I enjoy. I'm burned out, or I'm frustrated, or it's my third job in 7 years and I don't like it. And the kids are great and I love my kids, but God, and all these things come into play. And what you're finding is you're living the life you should. This is what everybody around you told you that your desires are, and you've given up on your own desires. So we've got to
Hmm.
teach you sometimes how to bring out your own desires and say, this is what I want. And that it's okay to say what you want. And it's okay to have your own desires. And this tough one for a lot of people pleasers, it's okay to say no to someone else and still have them love you. I can say no to my spouse and they're still going to love me. That throws a lot of people. That's one personality adaptation. There's a lot of other adaptations. I can be very not trusting. My parents were really inconsistent with the way they raised me. I'm going to grow up and not trust anybody. And I'm just going to look for faults and not believe anybody. So it's the way we're manipulating the world. You can have a winning script, you can have a loser script, you can even have a banal script, which is just kind of this flat, I kind of exist, but there's no passion. I'm just droning through life. And those are the different scripts we get. And it's all coming in and saying, this isn't working for me. And then we go and we talk. Most of what I do is talk work. And we figure out, what are you feeling and why? And I have yet to have a client whose parents did anything to them on purpose. Most parents are doing the best they could with the way your parents were raised by their grandparents who were raised by their great grandparents who are, it's multi-generational sometimes.
Right.
Other times your parents are stressed or money, your child was sick or something else. And that's what got on. Very few parents have done anything like this on purpose. They're all doing the best they can.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's my experience as well, is that, it's like unless they've done a ton of personal growth work and or therapy before raising you, then they're just going to raise you the same way they were raised. And that's how humans are. And everyone's doing the best they can. Of course, there's exceptions to that. There are people who are, have sadistic tendencies or
Yeah.
psychopaths, but it's very, very, very low percentage of the population. Most people
Right.
are doing the best they can, and that's where the intellectual forgiveness work comes in. But then of course we still have these patterns that are living in our body and our habits that, if we are trained to people please, we don't even know how to access our feelings and our desires.
And the way you were raised, you don't know there's a difference. So I have a client, mom would get frustrated, sit the client and siblings down on the couch and scream at them for 2 to 3 hours.
Wow.
Turns out mom was bipolar. Nobody knew that at the time, but mom would just scream at them for 2 to 3 hours. It wasn't until the client got to college when he realized, wait, that's not the way it works in every family.
Wow.
Because you just don't know there's a difference sometimes. You don't know that what they're doing is wrong. This was my normal. This is the
Mm-hmm.
only way I saw things. What's the adage? A caged bird will look out the window and think flight is a disease
Wow. Yeah. I
because
haven't
they
heard it
just,
said like that. That's really poignant.
yeah, a caged bird thinks flight is an illness. And because they just don't understand it, it's something new that they've never experienced.
Hmm. Yeah.
And to one point you made before, by the way, even if your parents did do a lot of the work and they did clean themselves up a whole bunch, like I said, nobody gets out of childhood unscathed. The intent of what your parents were doing and the impact that you absorbed can be wildly different. There was no intent to hurt, but boy, did you take it in such a way. And there's no blame. There's not even a semblance of responsibility. It's just what happened. And
Hmm.
letting go of the blame is some of the work as well.
Totally. Yeah. Because it's not until we can
Yeah.
really let go of the blame that we can then say, oh, well, the anger is actually at the fact that I don't know how to get past this pattern myself. And, that's where you come in. And so, yeah. So let's talk about then how can people begin to reclaim their own desires and their own feelings and their own power?
So the first question I will ask every client when they start working with me is, what do you want to change about yourself? And many of those clients will get frustrated because that's the first question I ask every single session as well. Because it's all about you. And I can't force you to change. I don't often say the word can't. Many things are a choice. I can't force you to change. It's up to you to say what you want to do. And when you start feeling, at least, things are wrong or thinking things just are not working the way you want them to in life, we start diving in and going, what's uncomfortable? What is it that you want in 6 months or 12 months? Where do you want to be? What do you want to be feeling? What is that going to look like for you? What's getting in the way? And a really important question is, what do you have to give up to get where you want? Because sometimes giving something up, even when it was painful, I don't want to give up this painful thing because it's a connection I have to my mom. Yeah, but it's hurting you and it's limiting you. So, what can we do to help you grieve that loss and start living the life that you want? And a lot of it is just being able to speak these things to me, to somebody you trust, to somebody trained, to say, what is it that you want to change? And how do we get you there? And what is that going to take? And then it's your own desire that's going to keep moving you forward. As you see the goal coming in and coming into focus, you start wanting it more and more and more. And some things are just going to be a grief. We can't, we can't go back in time. I would have fixed a lot of things in my life if I had a time machine, but we just have to grieve sometimes the losses that we can't go back and fix. And we learn the lesson without responsibility or blame, and we keep moving forward.
Yeah, it's true. I think a lot of people go to coaches and they want to change something. And of course, it has a lot to do with the, I'm sure you have a lot of modalities that you work with, but like the cognitive belief work and, visualizing what you want and really allowing people to, after they visualize what they want, learn the skills. But if it goes against what our programming is, it is going to feel scary. And there is going to be grief that comes up when we hit that
Yeah.
wall of, but wait, it's not, like that client that you mentioned whose mom used to scream at him. Once he realizes that that's not normal and he learns different ways of dealing with anger, he's going to feel a lot of anger and a lot of pain and a lot of grief around what happened. And I think a lot of people don't really understand what grieving is. So do you want to talk more about that?
And everybody grieves a little bit differently. And what does it take? Some people are going to bring out anger. Some people are going to bring out sadness and hurt. Hurt and anger are opposite sides of the same coin.
Mm-hmm.
Many, many times someone will come to me to do work and they're immensely angry and you can see the angry. And there's a lot of hurt under the surface. That was my issue when I first started doing this work. Other people are going to come with all this hurt and it's easy for them to cry, but wow, having them get angry, it may take months for them to realize I'm not hurt. I'm pissed. But the biggest thing is I can say is there's more room out here than there is inside. And to let the emotions out is critical to feeling them and
Mm-hmm.
experiencing them and letting them go. But the other thing is, and I will admit, I'm going to speak out of both sides of my mouth at the same time here. We can't change the problem with the same mindset that created the problem. So if it's our thoughts and our feelings, the way we were raised that created our negative script, we can't change our script with that same feelings of I'm a bad person, I'm worthless, I can't get anything I want. If that's part of your negative script, if that's still the way your mind works, you can't change your script until you change those thoughts.
Yep.
And a lot of times that's where the redecision work comes in, is you go back and we talk first person present tense. And I will say, Valerie, this is familiar to you. Do you remember a time when you experienced this as a kid? Yeah, mom yelled at me about this. All right. Tell me about that. Well, mom was yelling at me. No, no, no. Mom's yelling at me, first person present tense, and we go and experience it again. But what you have now that you didn't have when you were 5 or 6 years old is your adult ego state and all of this experience. and a trained guide to help you along the way to say, wait a minute, mom's yelling at me, but this isn't about me. This is about mom. This is
Hmm.
mom's anger and mom's frustration. And there's nothing that says I'm not an okay person. To be blunt, pardon me for your audience, that's mom's shit, not mine. So you
Yep.
learn to take on what's yours and you learn to give up what's not.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'll give you the personal story for me. I have an older brother, I have an older sister, and my parents wanted two kids.
Wow.
So yeah, I was an oops. Admittedly, and I've been told, and this, that, and everything else, but it wasn't until I was 40 something or another when working with my own therapist and doing my own transactional analysis work, when I had the recognition through this help that that's not my fault. My being born was not my fault. That's up to my parents.
Yeah.
But I had taken the blame for 40 some odd years in my family. So I
Wow.
had to let that go. Those are the kinds of things we have to let go and give back to whoever's going to own those issues.
Right. No, exactly. And it's it's great that you shared that because I think a lot of people blame themselves for the beliefs that they have, like, oh, they didn't want me, so therefore it's my fault. And it's like, wait a minute, how could it possibly be your fault? You don't choose. I mean, of course, we can look at it spiritually, like, okay, some people believe that we
Right.
choose our parents. But I mean, obviously, even in that case, it was your parents that chose to have unprotected sex that day that they conceived you. It's not like
I know I know a lot of people in my practice and outside of my practice who, if I looked at them and said we all choose our parents, there's a lot of people who would just look up and go, I chose poorly.
right. And exactly.
So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
understand the belief, but
yeah.
if that's true, I needed more knowledge. I needed more information before I make that choice.
Right. Uh, yeah, it's like I was not thinking clearly up there. Like, who chose that for me? But yeah, I mean,
So
that would be the topic of a whole nother interview if we were to actually talk. I was more kind of like joking when I said that.
yeah.
Although, I mean,
But
I am obsessed with Carolyn Mason. She's the one that wrote Sacred Contracts that talks all about that. But
yeah.
it's we can kind of stay where obviously it is not your fault that you were born. And
No,
but
but
it's like we take that on. It's almost like that story about one fish asking another fish, how's the water? It's kind of
I
like, and
don't
the
know
other
this.
fish is like, water, what's water? Right. And it's like we don't notice it's all around us. That's the way we take on these beliefs. It's like if you just
Yeah.
know that your parents didn't plan, to have a third child, and then that here you are. It's like we just take on those beliefs and it becomes our water and we don't even realize that we have it.
We don't even realize it. But they didn't tell me that when I was in utero or less than 18 months old or anything else. I learned that much later, but it did make sense for me in what I felt in
Mm-hmm.
terms of, oh, maybe some resentment, maybe some questioning, maybe some, they were done with diapers and midnight feedings and all these sorts of things when I came along. And all of a sudden they have to do all these things again that they may not have wanted to or thought they were done with. So any resentment that they were feeling were pre-verbal at this point in
Right.
time. It is imperative as children, as infants, that we start recognizing what's going on in our surroundings to keep ourselves safe. So we pick up on all these emotions, facial expressions, body mechanics, all of these things. And that's how the script starts. And we keep
Mm-hmm.
redefining it. And so the where we started the episode is, why do we date the same person in a different body over and over again? And I don't know if I was on camera or not, but I was laughing when you said the same person in a different body. That is a great description. As a friend of mine once said, it's we're going to the hardware store to buy milk over and over and over again. And that's the problem. And a lot of what we're doing is, let's say, for example, you had a very, very narcissistic father who never said, I love you. and you've spent your entire childhood trying to get dad to say, I love you, and he never did. Well, the great way to solve that issue was if you can find somebody just like dad to say, I love you. So you're going to date a narcissistic man who's never going to say, I love you, because you're dating the same pattern over and over again. And when that doesn't work, you're going to go to the next narcissistic guy and the next one and the next one, because you're trying to get a need met from the same type of person that had that influence. You're trying to get an answer made or a correction done from something that happened by a particular type of person. So you keep going after that particular type of person over and over and over again. You're going to the hardware store to buy milk and getting very frustrated that you're not finding any milk at the hardware store.
Exactly.
And the analog to that is, if you actually did find milk in the hardware store, would you want to drink it? So what we need to get you to do, or I want you to start recognizing, is I need to start shopping somewhere else and having different criteria, and recognizing the fact that dad's never going to say it and he never will. And I need to mourn that and find somebody who's going to be valuable to me and actually say what I want to hear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the hardest part of that, because you talked a lot about, when people come to you, they have to know what they want to change. And then you help them to reclaim their own feelings and their own desires and,
Mhm.
learn the skills and reprogram the past. I think the hardest part is that when people recognize, okay, I want to be attracted to somebody who is going to be emotionally available now. But then they meet that guy, kind of like you were talking about in the example when you said like that, let's say your client's avoidant and they meet someone really secure, and it's like, I'm not attracted to that person. I'm just not feeling it. And you can't
Right.
force yourself to feel attracted. So how do you help people overcome that?
That is, I have that difficulty in my own life as well. It is very, very tough. There are researchers who have spent their entire career studying attraction and what it takes for you to feel safe and bring that in without having these grandiose opinions or belief systems of what's going to happen. And it's extraordinarily difficult. But as you start letting go of what hurt you in the past and start recognizing the benefits that these other people have, your attractions are going to change. Your attractions are going to grow when it comes to that individual's personality. There may be a look you like. You may like taller. You may like thinner. You may like brunette instead of blonde. But it's the personality and
Mm-hmm.
the impact on you and your soul and your energy, and your security and your safety, that's all going to come into play. That's going to make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I like
I
to,
wish I had a better answer. I would love that in my own life, and it's something that we all look at and try and figure out.
yeah, and I agree. It is not easy. I don't want to tell anybody that it's easy. I mean, I know in my own work when I work with clients like that, and of course, I use different modalities than you do. When I work with people to reprogram their patterns, what I notice, and of course, I want to hear your thoughts about this, is that we really we're attracted on the outside to people who treat us the way we treat ourselves, and so when we start to do this work that you just mentioned around really grieving the past, reprogramming our beliefs about it, recognizing it wasn't our fault, learning how to feel our feelings, discover what we want, and actually own our power, and learn how to go on a date not thinking about how can I make them like me, but instead,
Yeah.
like, really learning how to trust your own feelings about the person and look at like, are they right for me rather than how do I be right for them?
Am
uh,
I right for them?
yeah,
And it's
exactly.
hard. It's so hard because we want that. We want to be loved. We want that other
Mhm.
person. That's the entire basis of transactional analysis. We're looking for love. And how do we make sure we get that? Well, for most of us, it's all about changing ourselves for somebody else, because it's not often we get complete unconditional love from our parents. or our siblings or the family of origin, whatever that was for you. So we're always changing ourselves to bring others in. That amount of security of being so okay with yourself that you can say, this is me, love me or not, this is me, and I love me. That's a big portion of it.
Hmm.
You mentioned attraction a minute ago. One of the most attractive things that I will find with anybody is confidence. And we all know that person who walks into a room and just owns the room, has the confidence, and says, this is me. I don't care if you like me or not. This is me. That power that comes into play for a lot of people can be very attractive, can be actually really sexy. They're somebody who knows themselves well enough. And we have to be that same to start bringing that in our own life. First person we have to
Exactly.
start loving is ourselves. And I know, oh, that's corny. It doesn't really help me anything else. Yeah, it may not. You may think it's corny. It's also accurate.
Right. And in this case, I think it is really important to own, because love is so multidimensional, but to own the part of
Yeah.
love that's a verb, meaning like it's a nice thing to say, I love myself, but what actions do you take on a daily basis to love yourself? And I'm not talking
Right.
about like going out and getting massage, which is obviously part of it, but it's like for me,
Self-care is great.
it's about the emotional self-care.
Yeah.
That's really what allowed me to, because through my own childhood, I learned that you should either be in the one in control or the one who's submissive, right? And so that dynamic played out all throughout my 20s in my relationships. I either thought that I had to control or be controlled. And so it wasn't until I started really owning my own feelings and needs and really like discovering, wait, that doesn't feel right, and this is how it feels, and this is what I need. And then of course, what is the other person feeling and needing? And it's not just about me, it has to be collaborative. But I had to really learn that that's possible, because it was a big blind spot for me, that you can both. The biggest transformation for me was learning that needs don't conflict. Strategies conflict, but I can need something, you can need something, and we can actually brainstorm a way to get both of our needs met. It doesn't have to be one person has power over the other person.
Well, not all the time. And communication is saying what we want and being open about that and communicating that is so that's where most everything starts when it comes to working with couples and relationships, or even the rapport that I have with a client is I can't know what is going on in your head and your heart and what you're feeling unless you tell me. I can make suppositions. I can watch your body language and all those little micro movements and say, hey, what did you just swallow back? What are you thinking? You just went away. I can do all that stuff. And I have clients, and it just annoys them tremendously when I say, what did you just swallow back? Like, how did you know I did that? But until you start communicating openly and vulnerable, that's whether it's me or it's your significant other or the person you're dating, your spouse, that's where the magic really starts happening. Is you have to be open enough to do that. You, from what you described in your 20s, I'm assuming you were being pulled in both directions. If I was in a relationship where I was controlling the other, it didn't feel good because I'm supposed to be on the submissive side of thing. If I'm in a submissive relationship, it doesn't feel great because I'm also supposed to be controlling. You're getting being pulled in two different directions simultaneously.
Yeah,
And that
exactly.
creates such havoc. Yeah.
Yeah, and it would be like I'd try to like sweep conflict under the rug, but then eventually it would just I would get too upset, and then I would try to control the situation. Then I feel guilty about it, and yeah, it was. That's why I started this journey on how to like. Wait a minute, there's got to be a better way.
You're bringing up in that 12 seconds, you are bringing up so much when it comes to sweeping things under the rug. Well, open dissension is always going to be better than that unsettled piece. Bring up what you're feeling. The
Right.
fact that I'm not going to bring something up is going to lead to rescuing and resentment. And it doesn't matter what it is, how much you love the other person, how attracted you are, how anything else, how beautiful this relationship is. Resentment will always win. Nothing can outlast resentment, and it's just a
Mhm.
cancer that eats away at every part of the relationship. I don't care if you're Buttercup and Wesley, resentment
Mhm.
is going to destroy that.
Yeah,
You
no,
have to watch
absolutely.
out for that. Yeah.
And I completely agree. And I know that it is really about, now I try to say how I'm feeling and what I'm needing, but I first had to discover how to tell what I was feeling and what I was needing, because that was not okay in my childhood, is to really own my feelings and needs. And so, that's why we have to learn the skills as adults. And I know we were chatting beforehand, about that. You also do some Dom work, and that really is completely misunderstood, and that it's a
Yeah.
wonderful way to own your power with consent and attunement. And so I would love to hear, first of all, what do people misunderstand about that? Because it's a lot. But then,
It's a lot.
what does that have to do with helping other people own their power?
Who better to understand power than somebody who's been trained as and does the work as a professional dominant, as a dom? So it's both. A lot of times it's people who are holding on to power, which they don't rightfully have, whether that's controlling somebody else through manipulation or threats or just, unconscious kind of trying to control somebody. Don't leave me, don't do these things. Or it's giving up your power that you rightfully own. We mentioned the people pleasers a while ago. They feel that they have no power. They can't say no without losing love. And so all of these nuances come into play, and it's a beautiful combination between transactional analysis and the Dom work and the theories and the modalities that go behind kink and BDSM. So, what is not understood is a lot of things. To start with, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, Christian Grey from 50 Shades of Grey. Um, I'm not supposed to diagnose anybody I've never met, but I would call that man a psychopath. Hollywood does a terrible disservice to kink and BDSM. They traumatize it, they bastardize it. Everybody had some horrible thing happen when they were a kid, and that's why they like these modalities. The truth is entirely the opposite. I can give you dozens of psychological studies that show people who participate in BDSM and kink modalities through clinically controlled studies score higher when it comes to attunement and relationship and communication and all the various measures that we say, how is somebody healthy or not? There is less trauma in the lives of people who participate in this than there are in the general population. So that's a lot of the myths. I have an entire lecture series I give on the myths that go behind BDSM and kink and what the problem is. I teach psychologists to be kink aware. I work with couples and groups and individuals, and I will teach BDSM for those who want to do it safely. It starts with the first person you have to control is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going back to that self love and those self feelings. Learn what your emotions are and learn how to control them. Another big misconception, it's all about dominating my partner. It's all about controlling my partner. It's all about giving up my life for my partner and doing whatever they want. It's not. First and foremost, it's all about trust. And with that comes open communication. You need to be able to talk about everything that you want to do. You should know when you're about to play with somebody, what do they want to experience and what their boundaries are? What did you negotiate? The negotiation should cover everything so that there are no surprises. And
Exactly.
if you can't talk to your partner about your sexual interests and your desires when it comes to the bedroom, how do you talk to your partner about finances? How do you talk to your partner about what religion are we raising the kids? How do you talk to your partner about, I want to go back to school and get my master's degree?
It's true.
It's absolutely true. We talk about consent. In the kink and BDSM world, and it's something I read recently and I just loved it. Everything is a no until you get a yes. What is a yes? That means yes. Our goal is an F yes. I don't know if I can say that in your podcast or not, but the goal is to have somebody go, fuck yes, that's awesome.
Yeah, I
But a
mean,
yes is a
I don't
yes.
mind cursing. I am if anyone who's watching this does mind
Probably is not going to
cursing,
be bothered by it.
then please let me know in the comments or listen to it. But
Watch your language.
people,
Everything is
my
a
audience is adults, so
good.
hence why
Yeah.
we're talking about all this.
When it comes to BDSM and kink, everything is a no until you get a yes. What is a no? It means no. I'm not sure. That's a no. Maybe that's a no. Let me think about it. That's a no. But in the rest of our lives, everything is a yes until you say no. Our boundaries are being invaded all the time. Your boss looks at you and says, I need you to work tonight. There was no question there. There was no consent. You are staying late and working tonight. Doesn't matter what your plans are. Your kid's recital, your kid's first hockey game, the date that you had, your anniversary dinner. Instead, wouldn't it be great if the boss says, we need to talk. Can you work tonight? No. Okay. What can we do? We have this deadline. I'll come in early tomorrow morning.
Exactly.
I'll do these things. But we miss that. It's a complete opposite result. And so what I do is I will bring in the modalities of power to help my clients. I had a client once, she had an ex, she hadn't talked to him about 6 months. And he contacted her in a text. And she was feeling super guilty because she asked to reply to him. Why? And she looked up and said, because I'm a good girl. I'm supposed to reply to him. You're a good girl. That means you're a people pleaser. You're giving up all your power. You don't have to reply. You can choose to reply. You can ghost. You can say no. You can say, I told you we were done. All of these types of things, but you don't have to reply. And that's giving up your power that you rightfully own. This guy reaching out to her was grabbing hold and trying to keep power that he did not rightfully have. And so I bring all these modalities into play. Yes, I can teach people with kink. Yes, there's all the brain chemistry and everything that goes on with a flogging instant, with flogging or spanking or impact. There is the transient hypofrontality. We're shutting off that frontal lobe and we're just experiencing life. The runner's high, subspace, whatever you want to call it, transient hypofrontality, that we can do, and we can actually use kink and BDSM to help people make change.
It is very groundbreaking, because I haven't heard of somebody who integrates coaching and teaching about BDSM. And so, yeah, tell me more about how you teach that and how that integrates into the talk work that you do.
It's some of it is just explained. Now, some clients are very on the P on the G-rated side, and it doesn't come up this way. And I'll just talk about somatic therapies and power. The client I mentioned who was giving up her power when it came to the text, not her ballywick whatsoever. It's very G-rated with her. But I explained to her from a power mentality of what's going on. I can also say to somebody, experience how to say no. Somebody who is a people pleaser. You can start pushing the boundaries safely on them to say no. And the response that I was always trained at when somebody says no, the response is thank you for taking care of yourself. Good for you for saying no. Or if I see somebody struggling with an issue, I can say to them, the answer is not going to change the way I feel. The answer is not going to change my mind about how I feel or think about you. You're still a client or a friend. I still have respect. You are still an okay person, whether or not you say yes or no. And those modalities can come into play. I have seen clients break down crying from a bondage session. You can use it for PTSD to help somebody get through and get agency back in their body. A great example of this would be a survivor of sexual assault. They can go talk to a therapist and deal with all the PTSD because you're hyper aware. You're looking around all the time. You are just in fight flight mode, all of those modalities all the time. Go talk to a therapist. Great. Work your way through that and get done with the PTSD. You're no longer entering a room and being aware of where the exits are and the dangers lie. You can actually go take all the martial arts you want, black belt and Krav Maga, Jiu-Jitsu and everything else, so you know that you can handle and take care of yourself at all times. Great. When it comes to intimacy with a partner, you may have lost that because what happened was your body autonomy was taken away from you. And so sometimes it could be simple as the little trick we did with each other as kids. You hold your, hopefully people are watching this, not just listening. Hold your two index fingers next to each other. And somebody can grab a hold of them, and it's impossible for you to pull your hands away. And I can do this with the client with permission, negotiation, talking it through, and just hold them there so they can feel they can't get away until such time they say, I'm done. And you immediately release. Thank you for taking care of yourself. And they now can start regaining body agency by something as simple as having their hands held together.
Yeah, no, exactly.
It,
For those who are listening, all you were doing was just sticking out one finger and holding it with the other hand and trying to separate them. And, that
yeah,
you can, and that it's a little microcosm that's safe for people to
right.
experience.
Or I can have a client put both of their index fingers together and I can wrap my hand around both of those index fingers. And now it's a very quick, simple restraint on each of their hands. They cannot pull their hands away, but it's also instantaneous to release. They say, I'm done, open up the hand, and they're free again. And they can shake it off. They can feel the intensity going on in their body and realize they are still safe. It is just
Exactly.
a different modality to help somebody get over some of these kinds of traumas. And it's a beautiful thing. I went through many, many years of transactional analysis in my own life and my own work with a phenomenal, great therapist helping me out. And I went through 2 years of a couple years of training with a professional dom, and I was watching her first couple months of going through this training and seeing the same modalities that I was seeing in the therapy room or in the group room. And she's doing fascinating, the same exact work with some of the other students and I. And it was
Yeah.
fascinating to see that combination, that overlap of the two different processes.
Totally, yeah. And because I imagine that what you do with your clients before you set up the even just that short little finger exercise
Yeah.
is tons of consent, tons of practicing saying, when they're done, like really imagining doing it before you do it, and really allowing them to feel safe through the whole process. And that's so important when you're doing any kind of somatic work.
Right.
And
And,
nobody who has a people pleasing program learned how to give consent or how to actually ask for what they want, or that it's okay to say that they're done or to say no. And so having these teeny little experiments are so useful to then say, okay, what was that like for you? And
and a big, I was just going to say, a big part of working with the people pleaser client is also making sure they are doing what they want. I will be very reticent to dive into this work with somebody who is very, very much that enthusiastic overreactor and that people pleaser, simply because I need to make sure that they are doing it for them,
right,
not to make me happy or a partner happy.
exactly.
That's a lot of it. And so I mean, that can lead to another misconception when it comes to this kind of work, is it's all about bondage and impact and leather and everything else. One of my favorite implements is a makeup brush. That's it. A little 1 inch wide makeup brush. Somebody who is used to cutting, the teenage girls who are used to cutting, or and guys too, many times. Some of it is just, I need to feel something. Well, let's do something. Let's look at that without causing actual body damage. And it could be just as simple as a makeup brush, which does not have to be therapeutically. If you want to play with your partner, a blindfold and a makeup brush can be an incredibly intense, beautiful, erotic session without the intensity, but you're blindfolding somebody and you're using sensory perception. That, ladies and gentlemen, is kink.
Yeah, no, it's true. And It allows people to relax and receive and feel in a way that they don't get to do if they're, because that's why we pretend that one person has the power, even though both people really do. Is that when
Yep.
you're surrendering, then you just get to, get over that decision fatigue and just receive. And it can be so healing for people who
Oh,
haven't let themselves do that.
you have the classic stereotype of the the dominatrix with a 50-year-old CEO who wants to be treated like a piece of furniture, whatever that is. And the reason is it doesn't matter if it's that CEO who wants to be treated like a piece of furniture, but they are on all the time. They are making billion-dollar decisions. They are working all the time. They're under a lot of pressure. They're under a lot of stress all the time. Or you have the stay-at-home mom who is trying to balance the budget and the house and getting the car to the shop and the kids to soccer practice and hockey practice, and they're on different sides of town and all of these sorts of things. And they just need the ability to do nothing. Hey guys, when you ask your date, where your girlfriend, where do you want to go to get to dinner? And they're like, I don't know, because they're making decisions all the time. Make a decision. How about say, like, I'll give you two options, or let's just do this. Oh, that'd be great. Fine. You see that happening all the time. Or you look at somebody and say, let's take the decisions away from you. And you just watch as their body goes, oh my God, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And they can enjoy some peace and quiet and not having somebody needs something from them, and they get to have the pleasure without needing to give back, whether the pleasure is sexual, whether the pleasure is relaxation, whether the pleasure is just not having to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
How awesome is that when you have to work all the time and you're on all the time to finally turn off?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people for whom it is their water, as we defined it earlier, that they have to be go, go, go all the time, they might not even realize that that's possible, that
Yeah.
they could relax and receive and know how to ask for that and know how to set that up without feeling guilty. And,
And the
I,
guilt.
right.
Just going to say that the guilt of like, I'm supposed to be doing 17 things. I can't lay here. It doesn't even have to be coming to me for a scene or piece of work. It could be I'm lying here on the massage table and I'm thinking about the 17 things I have to do as opposed to enjoying the massage because I don't want to feel guilty. Take the
Mm-hmm.
pleasure. Take the guilty pleasure. It's okay.